I am so excited to introduce Peter Geisser. Artist and gentleman extraordinaire. And a heck of a sense of humor. So anyway, I'm just going to turn it over. Peter is so accomplished, and I don't really have a great list. You're going to tell us a little bit about all you've done and what you are. He has spent years and years as an accomplished artist in a variety of media, and spent how many years at the school?
30 here, 3 in Boston.
30 years at the local school for the deaf and 3 in Boston. So working with his hands is not an understatement. Let's put it that way. And so I introduce with great pride, Peter Geisser. Does everybody have a program? Everybody need one?
Yeah, programs are always good to doodle on when the guy's talking and you're bored to tears. That's what artists do all the time. And Maureen's here signing for me, and I've got to keep my hands in my pocket. Recently, I did a mural at Lippert School in Warwick, and when I was working with the kids, of course, a bunch of kids in front of me, I'm signing to them, and oh, they were thrilled with that. And we had a little presentation the other day. We put the last thing on the wall, and the kids had programs, and they're all coming up to me, "Can we have your autograph?" Oh my God. And in the beginning, yeah, I know, it's very presumptuous. I was going to put in the beginning, but I just put the beginning. And the beginning of this window that you folks have essentially started by me a couple of years ago. I had a dear friend who passed away, Jagwan Kim, and he had, a few years before he died, he was cleaning the books out of his studio or out of his office and what have you. Wait a minute, did I do something there? Okay. And I said, "My God, what are you doing, Jagwan?" He said, "This is a Swedish cleaning." And I said, "A Swedish cleaning?" And he says, "Yeah, this is where you clean it out because you know you'll never need it again." And I said, "Whoa." And of course, then he was gone, and I'm saying, I'm in my studio looking at 55 years of glass. And what do you do? This is, you know, you do a commission, and let me find the button that, yeah. Is that speak to the next one? No? Okay. I'm gonna need somebody on the tent. All right, which one? There's nothing there.
There you go.
Ah, all right, and now this will work. Okay, thank you. That was Mary. That was my daughter, Mary. And you know, you wonder about what you're going to do with what you've been working with, and I have worked. He's not the most popular character in the deaf world, but Alexander Graham Bell, who we all know from The Telephone Man. And his greatest title, and he believed in titles, but he always said that the thing that he is most proudest of is he was a teacher of the deaf. He wanted to be remembered as that first. Me too. And I'm thrilled to say that my daughter is one of them now as well, and I'm looking out and seeing some more teachers of the deaf. And it is probably one of the greatest honors you can have in life. So, yeah, all those deaf folks. So my wife's big concern this morning was that I wear a suit, and I told her the next time I wear a suit in this church, I will be in a box. And Father Jared reminded me, no, I've got to show up here for the bishop on December 10th, and I better wear a suit. One more time, 2 more times, you'll see me in this suit in here. Her big thing, and Maura couldn't make it this morning because I wore her out yesterday, taking her to a concert. But her big thing was, keep talking and finish and don't remember the clock is going on and don't go off on a tangent. So that's what the pictures are for. The pictures are the talk, and I'm just going to make comments, and somebody could sneeze if it sounds like I'm talking too much, okay? So 55 years of making stained glass windows, and whenever you do a commission, you buy the glass you need and you buy the extra glass that you might need, and then 55 years later, the glass you might need is all still there. So I have got thousands of dollars worth of mouth-blown European glass in my studio, and what do you do with that? And this was the idea. I have been signing, interpreting here at Christ the King for many years, it seems. I've been coming here many years off and on. And this window has been crying out to me every time I walk in this building. And when you're standing there signing the whole mass and you're looking at this and it's blinding you, and I have made so many designs for this window in my head. It is unbelievable. The big design, where do you go with this? The first thing you do when you're designing for a space is acknowledge the space. Look at what's there. I always find it very, insulting, I guess, when architects dare put up a building without looking around the neighborhood, or change something in a building without looking at the space. One little example of that, I'm not sure if you're aware of the Children's Hospital in Providence, but 30 years ago, we did 10,000 ceramic tiles with kids in every city and town in Rhode Island. 1,500 kids who were hospitalized, and they were on 7 floors of that building. But it's 30 years later, and the architects, in their wisdom, have thrown them all out because we need something new. Right, it's obscenity. It happens. It's like a war on the senses. War hits in many ways. Even if it's just standing or being in line and beeping your horn when you should just be patient, because you're not going to get there any faster. So, my first job was to look at the windows that Jackie Feuchard had made when back in the 70s, 80s, I guess, and they're beautiful. I have complaints with them that they don't tie together as well as they ought to. But she has used the best glass in the world. It's all mouth-blown European glass, and that's the material I use. So immediately we were in sync with something. She had tons of references. My God, there were 16 pages of biblical references that she has put into those windows. I'm dyslexic, so 1,600 pages or however it was. There was too many books to read. So I just went from in the beginning and at the end. And that's what's in that window for biblical references. And then, what's out here? What is this community? There are trees. There are trees everywhere. So the tree became the backbone of this window. From little doodles that you find, those are some of the very beginning ones way over there on, let me see, your left. And to evolving it until the one over on the right is the full-fledged lead line design. And in that, we have thrown in the ocean, fish, we have put wind, we have expanded those trees. So now you have got a cacophony of images to the point where are the trees? Well, that's the old poem, is you might have to chop it down, and if you can't hear it, it didn't fall, something like that. So this was the basic lead line design. And to point out, one of the things in my lead lines that you'll see a little in a couple of minutes is I use the line itself. My lead lines are anywhere from 1 inch to 1/16 of an inch. And one line can go from 1 inch and become 1/16 of an inch. just that, what is that saying? Well, the language of that is move your eye around. Take your eye on a journey. You don't see the coffee cup, which is amazing, but this is, my kitchen table, just because my studio is too much of a mess, and pull out my watercolors, and there are several versions of this. You can see up at the top right, there's a version up there that it didn't get discarded, but it certainly it evolved. And the nuts and bolts of it, the inspiration is from the trees outside at the front of the church, the ocean nearby, filled with living creatures. Water both supports our little vessel, cleansing and nourishing, and at the same time it pounds on the shore. In the sky and in the waters, there will be cells of light that sparkle in the firmament and in the depths. Today is a cloudy day. Of course, it's New England and it's Rhode Island. It might be not a cloudy day when we leave here. But one of the things people say, oh, it's too bad, it's cloudy, you can't really see the window. Yes, you can. Actually, you can see it better on a cloudy day because the subtlety of the glass is there for you. When the sun is pounding through, you get the light show. It's big drama, and it's a lot of fun. But it also bleaches out some of the subtlety. Kind of like in a conversation where you've got several people and then there's always one guy that talks louder than the other and the quiet person doesn't get heard as much. One of the amazing things with this design are the little spots, the rondelles, and we'll point out those in a minute. So the gift part is I have got a studio full of glass. Who is going to use it? Who am I going to sell it to? Well, couldn't find anyone. So here it is, it's all yours. The problem being, my hands are such, after signing and banging clay for 50 years, I can't lead a window like I used to. In fact, before I started the process, I actually made a small panel just to kind of get into things. In fact, the two people who are the recipients of that window, they haven't received it yet, so I'm so embarrassed because if I was teaching a class, I'd look at the leading job and I would have flunked myself. My hands are so bad. So the beauty was New England stained glass, Jim Donahue, Tracy and Kevin, his children, they run the most amazing stained glass studio in New England. And their craftsmanship is second to none. They leaded and installed the windows for me, and for you. And I'm not a numbers person. Jennifer Marin was all excited when she saw these numbers because I was like, I could care less. But for those of you who like numbers, and these are just a little bit, there's almost $5,000 worth of lead in that window. And I get more excited about this $450 worth of solder. And there's the buckets of putty and $60 worth of screws. Oh, there's a joke in there somewhere. Then on and on. And then of course there's the time. This is the part that nobody can put a tag on. On Jim's part, and Jim kept track, there are almost 600 hours worth of man hours, lady hours, hard hours. And this out here is a little exhibit. I took a photo the other day to just show you. If you didn't see this coming in, it'll be up afterwards. Just so you can see the actual sketches and cartoons and patterns from the project. One of the first things was to get accurate measurements and to label A, B, C, D. We found that we have 2 halves, so I'm dyslexic, so I don't like to get a lot of letters in there. So once I got to H, I said, we'll go to A1, A2, A3, so we just put a 2 at the end, and so we got a balance on that. but the measurements were essential. This was amazing joy for me, and usually you make a cartoon from your sketch. The cartoon is the actual size of the window, the drawing, the actual size drawing. So many people, my friends who say, what is a cartoon? Cartoon, that's Saturday morning, you know? No, a cartoon goes back to about the 11th century, maybe even further back, when they were making frescoes and stained glass. In order to know how big and everything else, they made a life-size drawing. That's where the cartoon part, it's life-size, life-like. So the whole thing is made of paper first. That is twisted and turned and changed a bit. Well, the beauty here was, we're in the 21st century, Tracy took my drawing, put it on her computer, and with her printer, cranked out all of the cartoons right there. That's what the window looked like over a year ago. And when we put it down there that big, it was like, yeah, we knew it was big, but when you actually see that it's a few steps to get to the end of it, you know it's very big. The next thing is, what do you make this with? And I make my my windows with mouth-blown European glass. It's outrageously expensive, and this is why. You start with sand, which is another, your dust. Windows are just sand, imagine. And that sand is melted in a furnace. A blow rod is dipped in, and you get that little bubble that you see at the top there. And then the bubble is blown into a long cylindrical form. They cut the ends of the cylinder, and they have definitely a cylinder. You score along the bottom, tap it, put that into an oven, an annealing oven, and that bubble is now flipped over and is a flat piece of glass. 2 foot by 3 foot. And the beauty of that is what you see here. You can make this bubble in different colors and different textures. You can make it streaky, you can make it plain. The bubble can go from dark to light, light to dark. And, am I doing that? Yes. So there. And the question is always, why do you bother? You know, it's like 10 times the cost. And this is why I bother. That is one piece of glass that is going into your window. And the sketch calls for blue, but this glass calls for something more than just blue. And so my job is to move that piece of glass around on the tracing, which is made from the cartoons. We have the cartoon and the tracing. And then I cut the pattern of the window, the piece of glass from that. Jeez, Louise, sorry. Rondelles, this was another major factor in this window. I have about 25 rondelles from Germany, which are fairly consistent in their shape and everything. I went to a glassblower, Clancy's design glass studio in Jamestown, and they made a couple dozen more rondelles for me, these beautiful pink ones. They're pink and kind of a peachy color. And the beauty of these is if you go up, and I want you at some point go up there and put your hands on it, and you'll see those rondelles are as much as a 3/4 of an inch thick in the middle. And what that does is you project sunlight through 3/4 of an inch of glass, and you have created a prism. So on a sunny day, when we first when the thing was first done, I came down from the loft, I'm looking up, and the sun is coming through, and here are 36 or so stars twinkling. Without even moving your head, they're moving. It's quite a show. I hope you enjoy that. My studio is my garage, and I like to, I like to think small on some levels. The problem is when you have 300 square foot of window, and your bench will accommodate 96 inches and maybe 48 wide. You got some limitations. So my cartoons and tracings, I basically made a clothesline that you see over right in the center there, and that's where all the cartoons and things, and as I needed them, I pull them off and lay them out on the workbench. Cutting, it's very simple. In fact, I've got glass here later. You want to have everyone's like, well, how do you do that? It's easy. You take a piece of glass, you put it on a pattern, you take a glass cutter, scratch, and some of you will not like that sound, like my wife, and you pick it up and press and crack. Very simple. Unless it's curved, and then it's not as simple, but still possible. As the pieces are cut from the pattern, they're put onto the cartoon. And that's essentially to keep them in place, because this is a huge jigsaw puzzle and you don't want to mix it up. So what you see here is a bench, my bench with one of the sections and some of the blue areas cut on it. The little arrows you see up there, this was a technical problem for me because I just used 2 lines because I can count 2 more easily. But Jim and the New England stained glass people, they have not just the light measurement, which is the part that you actually see light. Then there's the glass measurement, which is where the glass ends. And then you have the lead on the inside and the lead on the outside, and then you have the frame of the window. I only needed one of those measurements, so it was a little confusing, but we got through it. This gives you a feel of all of the variations. People think, did you paint this? No, every piece is cut from a big sheet of glass and put down, and then later, actually right there in the front, over here to the right, that big piece of blue glass on the bottom, that just shows you what European mouth-blown glass can do. It's like a paintbrush, whooshed that blue onto the air. And this is the only way you can get that. Now my friend Steve Hayes, an artist friend, was really, he doesn't appreciate how important he was. Because this thing was so big, and my world was so small, the only way I could manage the process was to have a drawing of every piece that I cut. And that was not my bag. So I commissioned Steve to come, and he would come every 2 or 3 days and draw the window that I had on the bench. And that right there is his drawing. The black and white and that little area over to the right there, that is his drawing. Way over to the right in this photograph is the actual glass on my workbench that he's looking at and copying. And you say, why is that important? That's important because when that was done in November. If you go way over to the other side, that was done in March. My memory is not that good. So in order to know that this all ties together, I needed a blueprint to show the process and where everything was. So here is the end of the year, and it's kind of funny how you get on a roll. There was one day I did not go out. I think it was just before Thanksgiving. And the next day when I went out, I realized this thing is so complex, I have to be there every day because it's like a dance or like a piece of music. You don't stop, or if you do, it takes a few minutes to catch up. So every day, basically, from the beginning of November to the end of February or March, into March, really, I worked out there, sometimes only an hour, sometimes 12. Glass, and up here in Steve's drawing, that's it on his little drawing. The red circle there is what happened to the windows once they're finished. I had to stack them. I used a foam core, 4x8 foam core, basically because I could pick that up and I can't pick up a 3/4 inch piece of plywood too easily. So I put the foam core, put the cartoons, and then the glass would go onto the cartoons on top of the foam core. After 3 layers, I'd put some sticks and we would put the next level. So the whole thing is piled up there in the process. This gives you a little feel of where you came from. And way down at the bottom right, that was Steve's last drawing, and that was February 15th. There was more to be done, so it did go into March, but that gives you a feel of how that happens. This is, quite frankly, and I'm going to get moving along here, this shows you the steps. 5 easy pieces, just like that piano thing when you're learning how to play the piano. There's the black and white, there's this watercolor, there's Steve's diagram in the middle, then you're looking at the cut glass on my bench, and then you're looking at the leaded piece. And I had to take this because there are 3 buckets, 5-gallon buckets of, and these are the little scraps, okay? And now it's moving day. Kevin and Jim and Tracy came down with their truck. They literally did 2 trips, but they got all of those windows onto the thing, and then they've got a wooden foot, they nailed this thing. I was like so freaked out, and so were they. How do you move 300 square foot of glass that's all shaking carefully? We're in their studio now, and here was the real challenge for Kevin. I told him he was going to hate me after 10 minutes. Again, most stained glass windows use a 3/8 inch lead. I use a 3/8, a 1 inch, a 5/8, a 3/4, a 1/2 inch, and a 1/4. And so I had to color code every lead line for Kevin to do his job. And here he is. You can see there the lead stretched out with the different sizes. And here he is, a master. We talk, oh, that's a lost art. It's not a lost art. It is a very meticulous art. And nothing is lost until you stop doing it. And people still do it. And this is one of those giants of a man who, once the window is all leaded, and I went over that quickly, each piece is put down on the pattern, and then the lead stretched around it, cut, and you build it out. Once you've got all the pieces, then you solder all those joints, flip it over, solder it again, and then you got the window together. At which point, you're not done, it has to be puttied. It's like a black mayonnaise brushed into and around every lead. Here again shows you from the top right there, the sketch, Steve's sketch, the window cut, and the final panel. And again, the size of this, you have to stand upstairs there to get a real sense of the size of this thing. That little circle is the panel that you see there. And of course, there's the other phenomenon, and that is, we're dying to see this, but you can't. You're gonna come back in another year. That's how this works. Father Jared and Jen Marin came out to check it out. We went to Jim's studio in Attleboro, and Father Jared is getting a lesson in mouth-blown glass. And this panel here was one of the few and first time we actually picked up a panel and saw real light behind it. Prior to that, it's all on light boxes. And here we are. Again, the volume of all of this is extraordinary. These are the 2 small windows that you can actually come right up close to, and I'm so glad we did those because they really wrap up the whole thing. There's Kevin and Tracy and little short guy in the middle and Jim, and the task is done, and now the real moving day. This was one of the, when you're my age, you think, okay, well, I remember when my daughter was born. I guess I remember when I got married. Actually, I've got that in the right order, too. But those important days, and this was one of those days that was like, oh my God, I can't believe, I didn't have to do a thing. I just had to be there and take pictures. And that's what you're gonna see here. And this one photograph over on the left and the one right in the middle gives you a feeling. This guy is 6'2". So it really, when I took that photo, it's like, oh my God, that is very big. Even though it was made by then, you still don't understand. It's a good metaphor for life. We have no idea what we're doing. Hopefully when we get to the end, we can say, that was something. So here they are. Somebody said, how do they put these pieces in? And the answer is always, carefully. And climb up that scaffold with one of those pieces, carefully. And then the thing is, it just like grew as the day. They figured they'd get half of it done in one day. But what was happening was the adrenaline, not just mine, but the adrenaline was going. They actually could have finished, but we said at 3 o'clock, no, we better stop. There were 2 panels left. We'd better stop and come back tomorrow. But the excitement of this was just overwhelming. Now here again shows the beginning, Steve's hard work, and the finished product. And this is before and after. This is your L'Oreal or your Botox commercial. And now it's somewhat of a where is Mary? The big question everyone is asking, where is Mary? There was a window I did years ago, and this very serious priest, who did not have Father Jared's sense of humor, and he said to me, there was a big window, lots of blue and clouds, and he said, there's an old woman, Peter, who comes here to Mass every day, and she sees the Virgin Mary in your window. Is it there? And of course it's there, Father. Well, where? And then I get a little flip Irish, and T.S. Eliot was once asked what a poem meant, and he says, well, when I wrote that, only God and I knew, and now only God knows. But here is where your job begins. When you make stained glass, it's more like making a musical instrument than it is like painting a picture. You never see it the same way twice. I went to a concert last night. I listened to Bach's Third Orchestral Suite, and it's like 300 and something years later. How many ears have heard this? And it's never the same. It's not the same from the person who's playing, and definitely not the same from the person who's listening. I've worked with the deaf, and this metaphor is what you see is your music. And this window is my gift of music, only I'm not playing the music. I just made the instrument to be played. What you can say about your own work is that everyone's into artist statements, and I can make a million of them. But what I always love is, if you want to be honest, what does somebody else say about your work? Yeah, especially if they don't know you, because people are always very kind, even when they shouldn't be. Paul Norton, who has a thing in his book on stained glass in New England, or in Rhode Island, he has comments about the windows in the nave of your church, and he's God bless him, he's dead and buried by now. But at one point, he wasn't crazy about my work, but he liked it. It was and he told me that. And he's a very traditional guy. So the last thing Peter Geisser says, the art never deals with the world as we normally see it, but instead with forms that may suggest ideas that are very real to us. I'll take that. As an artist, that's a good compliment if you really are serious about what you do. And I am. And at the end of any project, I christen it with this poem that was given to me when I was 17 years old, and it has been my mantra ever since. As kingfishers catch fire, dragonflies draw flame. As tumbled over rim in roundy wells, stones ring like each tuck string tells. Each hung bell's bow swung finds tongue to fling out broad its name. Each mortal thing does one thing and the same, deals out that being indoors each one dwells. Selves goes itself crying, what I do is me. For that I came. I say more. The just man justices, that keeps all his goings graces, acts in God's eye what in God's eye he is. Christ, for Christ plays in 10,000 places, lovely in limbs and lovely in eyes not his, to the Father through the features of men's faces. 1889, Gerard Manley Hopkins, still sounds good to me. Questions? We got a few minutes. Maureen, over here.
Peter, talk about how they make the color in the glass.
How they make the color in the glass. You already skipped a lot of stuff. They have melted glass, and in the mix of sand, they will put different metals or oxides. And that's what turns the glass different colors. So if you want blue, you got cobalt. Put that in your glass and voila. If you want pink or you want red, 24 karat gold will turn it red. So that's essentially the phenomena. And then there's the other thing, and that is, and we didn't get into this, and that is a pot glass and a flash glass. A pot glass, the color is all throughout the pot of glass, all right? So if it's a yellow if it's yellow, they blow the, and it's yellow. A flash glass, there are some colors like reds and blues, which are so dense that if you made that into a pot glass, it would read as black. It would be just too dark. So what they do is they start a bubble of a lighter color, clear or maybe a pale yellow, and then dip that into red or blue, and then continue blowing it. When the thing is finished, you have that yellow glass or clear glass with this thin flashing of color. And the beauty of flash glass is that it gives a prismatic phenomena. The light dances through it. It just doesn't go through, it dances. Yes, right up front here.
Where did you decide to put the rondelles, and are they commonly done in other?
The rondelles It took a month to place the rondelles in this sketch. They were there in the original sketch, but again, because I had a little over 36, and it's a big window, so you don't want to just throw them up there. So it was a month of decision making as to whether this one should be yellow, this one should be pink, this one should be peach, and so on and so forth. So it was a fun part of the project, and I think that's when it was finished and I stood down and looked up that first time, I was blown away because it was the very first part of choosing the glass, and it was September that we did that, and I'm now looking at it on July 20th, the next year. It was very exciting. Yes, sir.
When you install the glass, I presume you left the old glass there, it's just...
In this, right, every installation is a different scenario. The way this worked was the glass that was there, it's not clear, but it was, it's a transparent glass, a translucent glass. That is a safety glass, and it's a good thick glass. So the stained glass, then there were stops that had to be added around all of the panels. The stained glass went in, and then a stop around the inside edge to hold it there. And then, and I didn't get into this, then there's a bracing phenomena. Every 16 inches, we have a bar going across. You don't notice it, but that bar we put, and the folks in Adelaide, they use the ancient technique. They put copper wires soldered to the panel. You put the panel in, then you put the bar into the side, the side panels there, and twist the copper wire around the bar, and that's what holds it in place. That will keep it from sagging. We geriatrics could use a couple of bars. Yes?
Peter, where did you do your training, your education, and your...
My education, oh my God. My brother Joe, who is out here today, and Joe is always saying, I taught him everything he knows, and in many ways he did. I went to Cranston High School East, took a couple of art courses there, yay! I spent 2 years at Our Lady of Providence Seminary in Warwick. It took me 2 years to figure that one out. And then I went to the School of the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, where I majored in painting. The second year I was there, this would have been like 1966, 67, if anybody old enough to remember, all hell was breaking loose in America and colleges, and the museum school had a very rigid classic curriculum that got thrown out the door, which served me well because I created a stained glass and mosaic major for myself, knowing full well I wasn't going to be able to support myself doing this kind of artwork. I love kids, and so I got a degree in art education from Tufts, where they are affiliated. I got my diploma and graduate certificate from the museum school, and then my MFA from Tufts. And then it was 8 years later, and as my brother Joe said, 8 years of college, he's either brilliant or the stupidest person you ever knew. 8 years to get through that. So that's where I came from. And then I started teaching, and that's where the real learning happened. Believe me. Yes, over here, sir.
Yeah, Peter, thank you so much for your presentation and dedication. Just out of curiosity, you know how much this thing weighs?
Good. I knew there'd be another number person there. Let me see. Going back, let me see if I can find that slide, because Jim may have. Let's see. Did I pass it? Yeah, I did. Here it is. All right. Well, a box of lead, 6 boxes of lead, 50 pounds each. What's that?
300.
That's how much lead's there. And the rolls of solder, the solder, you know, again, 30 rolls. Each roll has got to be a pound, maybe 3 pounds. So you got a lot of weight just there. And then the bars, he doesn't indicate how much the bars, just the H bars, even though they're aluminum, that was a significant thing. And then there's the glass. I really should learn this because Jim at one point told me how much the whole thing weighed. I don't do numbers well, I just mess them up. There's some more questions, yeah, way in the back.
Took certain colors and you masked certain colors in certain areas to represent something, and look for inspiration for the way that you masked the colors together.
Well, one of the things somebody was asking about, you know, and when I wasn't trying to be flip about the design, but one of the things that in my education, my early painting, you know, went to museum school, and so the museum was where you learned a lot of your design stuff. And there was a painting there by Poussin, French painter, that I really disliked. And the teacher in the history course, he really did like. And the thing I learned from Poussin was everything was very staged, and in a Poussin painting, if somebody has a finger and they're pointing, that if you follow that across, there's something that it bumps into, and when you get to that, it sends you in another direction. And a Poussin painting, you could spend hours looking at the spider web that he has created just in that design structure. So when you come out here and look at this window, if you find, excuse me, I need to show and tell. This is one of the colors that's in the window up there, quite a bit of it. And the reason for that is Maureen Oberg and the nurses at Hasbro Children's Hospital who commissioned me to do the window there, which was my dearest commission ever. And when I went down to New York to buy the glass for that job, they had a whole case of this pink glass with cobalt blue streaks in it. It's breathtaking. And I don't want to know how much it costs now. I know that they were looking at $600 a square foot for some of these expensive pink glasses. But if you go out here and look at one of these areas where there's this pink with blue, follow it. It will take you somewhere. And that's really the language. Every artist has got a language, and that's essentially my language. And that is, wherever you are, go somewhere else. There's much more to be seen. So then there's that, and then you've got a deep blue, you need a splash of orange to balance it. It's like cooking, really. Any other questions? Everybody needs, yes, over here, Robin.
Going back to the team that you were working together with, how did you decide what you were going to do? Were there any disagreements on what was happening, or how did you all get along? I was just kind of wondering the whole process. There's a lot, you did an awful lot.
I know it. Well, here's where the people I was working with, they know their craft way better than I do. You know, it's like when you do something all the time, you really, you perfect your skill. And then if you don't do it for a while, you gotta go back and catch up on it. Well, Jim and Kevin and his daughter, Tracy, they do this every day. They have got so much work you cannot believe. And so there was very little that we had to discuss. The only thing we had to discuss was measurements, making sure the sizes were right. Then after that, I made the what do you call it? These things here. All right, those are the patterns. I put down the colors as to what line would go where, and they simply followed that. The only time at that end. And whenever that happened, I would cut that lead and trim it down or carve it so that it would taper the way I would like. And they would simply take and do the work from that. So it wasn't, we never really, I mean, I would go in to look at what they were doing, and I would be in awe of what was happening. It was sort of like, a little like Cinderella. You wake up in the morning and here is the dress and it's all sewn. How did that happen? Well, all the little mice did the work. That answers you?
Sorry, one more question. So the lead lines that you talk about, the different thicknesses,
Mhm.
that's really just on the top of the glass, right? What's inside is all the same, right?
Right. Inside is the same thickness. The variation is on the surface on both sides. I have got a couple pieces of lead here and out in the hallway. You can pick them up and wash your hands later. Don't chew them. But it's very simple stuff. There was a hand over here. Yes.
What happened to the original window?
The original window here, that's still there. Yes, yes. So you got a double pane you got a Pella window without even asking. It's double pane, yeah, it's double pane, I guess. Yeah.
Can you say, how many individual pieces of glass?
I was waiting for that. I was waiting for that. I'm not sure if you all heard the question. The question was, how many pieces of glass are up there? And yeah, good question. When I was laid up, I was working on my master's thesis. I had to come home and work at home. I was working on a big mosaic for my master's thesis. And I'm working in down at my parents' house, and a friend of ours came over, Melda Gervais, and Melda was an accountant, and she's married to an accountant, and she's looking at, we were taking Venetian tesserae, which are 3/8 of an inch by 1/4 of an inch, and cutting them in half to make them, taking a little piece and making it smaller. And Melda she said, my God, Peter, you're making these little pieces even more little. I said, yeah, what about that? Well, how many are there? I can't remember what my Irish mother said to her, but oh my God. It was like, something like, who cares? But no, not to be flippant. You could count them.
I know.
You got it. All right. You can actually use these cartoons and figure it out from there. I was almost tempted to do that. One day it was, I said no. I got through one panel and said this is too much. But yes, there are a lot of pieces. One of the beautiful things with Jim, Jim and his sister. When Kevin was letting this thing, and he would not let his father work on it. I'm doing this whole thing. And you'd go up there and look, and he would be looking, he understood the amazing craftsmanship of these little German glass blowers. And so he'd even tell me, he said, I saw that bubble you put over there. And nobody's noticed that bubble I put over there unless you do this all the time. So it was really a joy to see someone else. And so he said to me, my sister won't let me putty anything, Peter. I said, what do you mean? He said, she told me if she can't do any of the leading, I can't do any. And what it was they were in love with this project as much as I was. And it shows.
Yeah.
Yes?
So what's your 55 years of extra glass collection look like now?
Well, it's almost the same amount, only half of it's in buckets now. Any more more questions? Yes, Mary?
Yeah, the two door panels, you didn't talk about that much, but the design for the window, what was the thought process going into?
The door panels were part of the original design, right from the get-go. One of the things with those two panels, and they're quite important, because when you're looking way up here, it looks like there's lots of little pieces. If you were up there, they're not so little. They're, they're pretty sizable, but they look like a quarter given the distance. The panels down below, just to give anybody who's looking for a mystery to solve, there's grapes and there's wheat. There's a little theology in those two. Again, it's something that people may want to wrap your arms around. But it's a more intimate, it's like the design sort of tapers down, and they're very much part of the whole. You know, if you stand up near the altar and look down, in fact, Father Jared, I can remember when we put those two panels in, it was like, oh yeah. Because there was part of it, no, we want to, oh yeah. And I told you, you need to do those two panels. Those are essential. And the other thing is, you can get up close to it. You can be you can put your hands on it. And it's kind of hard to touch the sun and the other. But this you can get, and that's important. It's important to be able to relate closely to the big picture.
Okay,
Yes.
can I wrap you up so that, and then people can do questions if they want. I know some of the people wanted to get into Mass. And I just wanted to say thank you.
She's here. She's looking for the basket. I know.